Welcome first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli, where thoughtful conversation and insightful guests are always tops on the menu. Join Coach K, Dr. J, and myself, Hootie Hoot, as the three of us and our special guests continue our discussion on contemporary social, educational, and sport issues. We hope you enjoy your experience with us as we try our best to have fun while listening and learning and doing our best to pay things forward. You can always send us an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram @Mike Hootner or on Twitter @Michael Hootner. Hey everyone, we want to give a special shout out to our sponsor of the Sports Deli, SportRx. You can go online and check them out at sportrx.com, or you can call them up at 888-831-5817. That's 888-831-5817. And all you got to do is let them know that Coach K, Dr. J, or myself, Hootie Hoot, sent you for your very special Sports Deli podcast discount. And they have 42 different brands for whatever your specific needs are, from Nike to Ray-Ban, Oakley. Professional athletes wear their products. Major League Baseball players, motocross, NFL, you name it. SportRx is the #1 leader in sports prescription eyewear. You can use your vision insurance, your flexible spending accounts, your health saving accounts. They accept all 3 methods of payment, and they have different styles for men, women, and kids. So again, call them up for your very special Sports Deli podcast discount at 888-831-5817, or check them out online at sportrx.com. And now back to the Sports Deli. Jonathan Wexler. You went and got coffee, John?
Yeah, earlier this morning.
Wow, is that Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah.
Wow. What do you get?
Well, this is a latte. Normally during the week I get iced coffee. On the weekends I get lattes.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
The iced coffee keeps me more awake during the week while I work.
Interesting. But what usually are you doing?
Ira's not mowing the lawn early today.
Hairspray or mousse, John? Hairspray or mousse. John, can you even spell mousse?
No.
I'm very excited about Kevin Eastman this morning.
So is Ohio State going to get in 6 games? No.
They have to play the last 2 without any cancellations.
Mark my words. If the other team comes down with COVID, they're going to be flying in like Western Kentucky for like $1 million. They will fly in any team. They have to get that 6th game in.
What a disaster.
Complete.
Money, all money. Hey, everyone. I want to spend a few minutes with a special dedication before we get to Kevin Eastman in about 5 minutes, in loving memory of Ernie Robinson, who I had the honor and good pleasure of working with at San Diego Mesa College, former Olympian representing the United States, and he won the gold medal at the 1976 Olympics in Montreal. He won another medal, a bronze, in 1972, and he's just a global figure. He was a global figure in the world of track and field, and he was involved in so many things, from indoor and outdoor championships, not only at the community college level. He's a legend and a Hall of Famer, but he was just, God, when I first met him, I was like, wow, he was in the Olympics? Like, you wouldn't know. He was so unassuming and such a loving person and so humble, and like you would never know that he learned to long jump on a mattress. Like, I mean, he was just a remarkable person. And I worked with him for a number of years, over a decade, at San Diego Mesa College when I was there, and I just learned so much about how he handled himself. Later in his life, obviously, we know that he was battling cancer, but he was hit by a drunk driver, in the early 2000s, and he didn't complain. uh, he just uh, did his rehabilitation and came back to work, and he helped so many kids move on to the next level. And if they didn't move on to the next level, to have like just an amazing 1 or 2 years at San Diego Mesa College, where he was a full-time tenured professor there and track and field coach. And he battled right until the end with his cancer. And he, like I said, he never complained. He was always grateful. um, and you can go to the San Diego Union Tribune and check out the column that they have that talks a little bit more about Ernie Robinson, who just passed away this week at the age of 72. And again, just a remarkable person. He was a great teacher. Like, I loved when I first started teaching at the community college level. I mean, you talk about a guy that like loved working on your core. I mean, he was crazy about it. He would be yelling out there. He'd be like no excuses. He would be. I mean, he was something. He was inspiring. I could hear him all the way at the other end of campus. You know, um, and I knew, oh, there's Arnie doing his ab work, doing his core work with his students, or with his team out on the track and field. And Mesa College brought in a brand new $2 million track and field facility that he was a big part of in organizing it, and the construction of it, and the architecture and the colors. And everyone owes a debt of gratitude to Arnie for what he did on so many different levels. And like I said, he paid it forward for so many years after his incredible experiences, and the racism that he had to face during his time in track and field. Um, and so it's a great loss. But he touched the lives of everyone that crossed his path. Um, you know, he helped so many people get scholarships to the next level. Um, and so, like I said, he was just such a humble person, and I was just lucky, that I had the honor to spend some really good quality time with him. And I know I speak for a lot of people. Um, you could never find one person that spoke any ill will or could say anything negative um, about Arnie Robinson. So uh, he went to Morse High School along with Monique Henderson, who spent time at Mesa for a while, and now she's in Orange County coaching. And she said the same thing about what just a wonderful person he was. She herself was an Olympian. Um, and So, like I said, I just wanted to dedicate part of this podcast to Ernie Robinson. He went to Mesa College and then San Diego State. He's a local person here and a legend here in the Hall of Fame. And we're all better off because we knew Arnie Robinson. So again, you can check out more information if you want. You can Google him. Obviously he was in Sports Illustrated. The most recent article is in the San Diego Union Tribune. You can check it out online. He was the outdoor champion in 1970. He was a gold medalist at the Pan Am Games in 71. He was the outdoor champ in 71, 72, 75, and 78. He was gold at the first World Cup in 77. He was a USATF Hall of Fame inductee in 2000. And just besides all that, the greatest human being that you could ever meet. So rest in peace, Arnie. Love you, man. And thanks for making me a better person, a better professional, for showing everybody what humility and being humble means. And you're going to be sorely missed. And we're very excited to now bring in our featured guest for today's podcast, Kevin Eastman. Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Deli. We are joined by Kevin Eastman, who is hailing to us from Haddonfield, New Jersey. Went to Memorial High School, graduated in 1973. Later on, went to Richmond, where he earned his bachelor's and later his master's degree in athletic administration. He's coached for over 40 years. You can find him on Instagram at Kevin Eastman Speaking. Eastman is Eastman. You can find him on Twitter, where he has over 36,000 followers. Yes, you heard me correctly, at Kevin Eastman. And you can also go to his website at kevineastman.net, where you can get all the latest information on his blog, watch video clips, find out how to get involved in the challenge series, or how to have him work directly with your team or business as a sports or corporate motivational speaker. He credits a lot of his success to his wife, Wendy. He reads a minimum of 2 hours a day, and he's here to discuss his incredible journey, including his new book, Why the Best Are the Best, which will give all of us insights into the habits, mindsets, strategies, and everyday choices that make the best the best. Coach, we're honored that you're here today, and welcome to the Sports Deli.
Hey, fellas.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Coach.
How are you?
Real good. We're excited.
No, my pleasure to join you guys.
This is cool.
Okay, yeah, going well.
Good.
That's good. It's anywhere from, Jay Billis went longer because, he's got a lot to say, I guess. And
well, Jay's a friend, so I'm going to be an anti-Jay.
Good. That's awesome.
4 minutes, and I'm not going to talk about length at all. No, it's my pleasure. I love to jump on things like this that'll help people kind of maybe hear a little bit about what some others have done, maybe even in a different industry, and others that maybe have had a little bit of success. So I'm always willing to listen, and I'm always willing to share.
That's Great. Awesome. Well, that's one of the big things that I've read when I was doing a little bit of prep work, and the 2 hours a day that you read, it's not necessarily always books, right? It's magazines, it's articles, it's just like you said, just trying to learn more about how other people do things and different styles, and how to incorporate that into who you are, and then share that with other people to pay it forward.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, because when I was waiting to get on, I was reading, people think when they hear that I read 2 hours a day, first they think it's a lie. And secondly, they think it's always books. And in fact, it's not a lie. There are times where I might read 3-4 hours a day. But it's sometimes articles, like right now, I don't know if you can really see it, but you can see some highlighted deal in there. And I'm actually reading some articles right now that I've already highlighted and was reading right before I jumped on today, about the Miami Heat culture, and maybe trying to find some things that go deeper than just what I already know. Eric Spoelstra's a friend. I don't know Pat Riley, but I've learned a lot from Eric on how and why they do what they do. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper, because when I speak, especially to corporate leadership teams, they are so keen to find out, what do the best organizations do? And not just what is it that they do, but why do they do that? And then how do they execute that? Not once, but the big thing now is sustainability. Yeah. How can we sustain things? So I'm in like, if you'd had asked me what book are you reading right now, I would have to tell the listeners none, because I'm kind of doing an article deal in December where I'm really honing in on some categories.
Now, is this something that intrigued you when you were a kid growing up? Did you aspire to seek just a higher level of knowledge, and you just couldn't get enough of it? Or is this something that came later after you had so many amazing experiences that we'll talk about that led you to want to, delve into this type of leadership training and motivational speaking?
Well, when I was young, the reason I read a lot now is I have to catch up to all of your listeners, because they've been reading their whole lives. I have not. I didn't start reading until a few years out of college. And the main reason was, once I once I was in the real world working, I found out I really don't know a lot of people. And I certainly don't know all these people who have become successful. So I started to figure out, well, if I don't know them, what's the next best thing I can do? I can go on the internet and see, have they written a book? Are they in some articles? Where can I learn from them? Because I think people, mentorship can happen live face to face, or it can happen with the mentor never even meeting you or knowing that you're being mentored by him or her. So the reading came later in life. I think, though, that because I was a little shy and introverted as a younger person, I used my eyes and ears a lot. So I probably was reading things, but it wasn't in a book or an article. I was just reading how people operated. And then if I did read an article, say on a player who was doing a drill, I might try and go out in the backyard and emulate that drill. So I guess I kind of was reading, but I was more doing it with my eyes and observing, and my ears and listening. So, I didn't take all the notes that I take now, but that was when my brain was less full. So I had room up in the computer. I have no room now. So I have to write things down.
Right.
I have to go into what I call my WILT notebook. And WILT is an acronym for what I learned today. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of my entries from this morning. So it's just kind of how I operate. It's not something that everyone has to do, although I do think people, should try to acquire knowledge, because none of us, well, a couple of things. A personal philosophy I have is there's more inside each of us, me included. And every listener listening today, there's more inside of them too. We were joking about, you had Jay Billis on earlier, and Jay's a friend, and he may be the consummate learner. He is even still trying to figure out how he can be more efficient with his word choice, how he can articulate his thoughts better. It's just who he is, right? So, and what you find out is there's two types of people in this world. There are know-it-alls and there are learn-it-alls. And the learn-it-alls are the ones who seem to progress in life. Now, the know-it-alls may be a little bit ahead of you early in life, but again, it's sustainability, right? So I've been able to do this 2 hours of reading minimum for 30, 35, 40 years now.
That's amazing. We're so honored that you're joining us today here in the Sports Deli, along with Dr. J, Coach K, and myself, Hootie Hoot. We are joined by Kevin Eastman. He was an assistant coach at his alma mater from 1978 to 1980 at the University of Richmond. He went to Colorado State in 1980, and he was there for 3 years as an assistant coach. He went to Virginia Commonwealth University from 83 to 85, again as an assistant. He came back to Richmond for a year, and then he went to Belmont Abbey, and he was a head coach there as well as the athletic director from 1986 to 1989. He went to Tulsa as an assistant coach, and then he went to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, where he was the head coach there, had a lot of success, and then he went to Washington State after that from 1994 to 1999. And then he went to the Boston Celtics in 2004. He had a couple of stints after he went to Washington State and before he got to the Celtics. And he was an athletic director at Randolph-Macon, a Division III school. And that was in 2002, 2003. When Mike Rhodes was the coach there, coincidentally, who is now the coach at Virginia Commonwealth, interestingly enough. And in 2003 and 2004, the year before he came to the Celtics, he was the national director of skill development for Nike basketball, while also owning and conducting Kevin Eastman basketball camps. And now back to the Sports Deli and the interview with Kevin Eastman. And you talk about sustainability, and so many things are going through my head right now in which direction I want to go. But when you transitioned from college to the pros, and you got that opportunity, what was the biggest shock or transition for you that you had to adjust to? And you talked about doing a lot of listening and learning as opposed to acting like a know-it-all when you first came into the league. How was that transition for you?
Yeah, well, I guess the biggest shock is I didn't know as much as I needed to know to coach at the highest level. A Doc Rivers, a Tom Thibodeau, both of whom are head coaches now, Tyronn Lue, who's a head coach now. Doc and Ty have won championships. I didn't know near what they knew. So I had to catch up quick. And
when you say you didn't know as much as them, in what respect? X's and O's?
The details of the X's and O's, how to communicate, push, prod the best of the best. I mean, everyone asks me or says to me, it must have been fun coaching Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, future Hall of Famers, right? Or even Shaq when we had him. But what you find out about Hall of Famers is they put Hall of Fame demands on your knowledge. They put Hall of Fame demands on your teaching, right? They put Hall of Fame demands on how quickly you can say something to them so they can keep going. Because the basic rule in the NBA is you never want their sweat to dry in a practice session. You want to keep them moving because the game is so up and down at that level. So the shock was I didn't know as much as I needed to know. So then the challenge was I had to figure a way to start to catch up. And that was going home each night. And well, first of all, it was not opening my mouth so I could prove to them how ignorant I was about what it takes to be a coach in the NBA. I wanted them to guess that I knew a lot, right? So that's why I wore my glasses every day. And I colored my hair super silver because that implies that you have knowledge and wisdom. Shoot, I had no knowledge and wisdom. So
trying to pull a Popovich.
Yeah, well, the imposter syndrome, right? We've all read about it. And interesting, and this is something for all young people. It's kind of off the subject, but maybe a tangent from. I read an article during the playoffs, during the bubble, where Duncan Robinson, the kid who really had a good bubble,
started at D3.
Yeah, he went up to Eric Spoelstra one day in the bubble and said, I just feel like I don't belong here. Like where I came from in Division III, and will I keep making shots? And Eric sat him down and said, let me tell you something. And Duncan brought it up. He said, I almost feel like I'm living the imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And Eric sat him down and said, well, guess what? I'm living it every day. And Eric's won NBA championships, and he still doesn't think he belongs. Jay probably feels the same way when all is said and done. There's times when I go speak and I'm thinking as I'm speaking to maybe a crowd of I don't know. So I spoke to Cisco Corporation over in Madrid, Spain. Barcelona, in front of thousands of people. And in my mind, as I was halfway through, I'm thinking, what am I gonna teach them? Now I'm not letting them know what's going on in my head. I'm looking like I got confidence.
Of course.
I got swag. But what I got is sweat under the pits, right? Because what I found with the best is they have a confidence that they're prepared and ready to go, but they also have an understanding that there's more left.
Thanks again to our sponsor for the Sports Deli podcast, Sport RX, the leader in sport prescription eyewear. You can find them online at sportrx.com or give them a call at 888-831-5817 and tell them Dr. J, Coach K, or Hootie Hoot sent you for your special Sports Deli discount. And now back to the interview with Kevin Eastman. Yeah, I want to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it reminded me of what I read that you said when Doc Rivers came into the locker room during the practice when they acquired Kevin Garnett during that championship season. And you've talked about how Doc Rivers came in and he said something that was so powerful and long lasting. And you talk about how words matter.
Mhm.
And he didn't say that much, but he said something that resonated so deeply with the team and with you in particular. And you thought that went such a long way with, as to why they believed in themselves and they could, bring a championship home to Boston. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, every sports team has a first meeting, right? So especially right before you hit the floor. So there's usually a first meeting for a dinner the night before training camp starts, where you kind of just get back together and break bread and that sort of thing. Because the best way to come together as a team is to get together as a team, right? So, but then the rubber hits the road in that first meeting in the locker room before you go out on the practice floor. So Doc walked in and he did his normal "What's up, guys?" But once the official meeting started, and you always know that you don't have to announce it. Okay, we're officially meeting now. You know when the meeting starts. He paused after he did his kind of "How you doing, guys?" And there was just silence for about 10 seconds, which seemed like 35 minutes. And I'm in the back, so my full vision is right on Doc. And in front of me, our lockers are shaped in a U-shaped fashion. So just like I am right now, our guys early on, because it's the beginning of the season, they're leaning back. They have chairs just like this, the nicest of chairs in the locker rooms, nice dark oak stained lockers. And they're leaning back. And Doc's first sentence was, "In this room, I believe we have everything we need to win the championship this year." All of a sudden, it went from lean back to, if you can picture this in your mind's eye, elbows on knees or thighs and leaning forward. And Doc had everything a leader needed to have. He had their minds, he had their eyes, and most importantly, he had their hearts. And then he went on to say, look, we don't have to project this out the entire country. We know in this locker room. I just want you to know, I'm the coach. I believe. Now, you guys should believe too. So it wasn't an aha moment for our players. It was more of an oh shit moment for our players. Like, gosh, he set not only the tone for the year, but he set the expectation. So, and that's who Doc is. Doc isn't concerned about winning. That's not what drives him. What drives him is not doing a lot of winning. What drives him is becoming the winner. And there's a difference in the two. Like in with the Clippers in our first 3 years, we won a lot of games. Mm-hmm. And I remember Doc at one point saying to the team, look, guys, we have to understand the next step is we can't just be happy with a lot of winning. We have yet to be the winner. So let's turn our focus drive to being the winner. And what do we have to do? So it was a very powerful moment that I think really set the tone and the expectation. And also let the guys know, hey, the four most powerful things a leader or a coach can say is, I believe in you. Because once you know that the guy on top believes in you, man, that opens up a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And to that point, I know you've lived in, the civil rights era. You're in a racial reckoning right now. We've had Dr. Richard Lapchick on the show and others talk about this quite extensively. How did you feel when Doc broke down crying at the press conference? You've been around him a long time. You've known him for a long time. How did that impact you as a white man who's, been involved in sports your whole life? You understand locker rooms, you understand diversity and integration and acceptance. How did that make you feel as someone who has had a lot of success in life, but yet he still felt that way?
Yeah, well, he had a success in life, but he was always an African-American male, right? So he maybe didn't get a head start in his life, right? You could argue that he might have been 10 yards behind the starting line, right? Yeah. So now he was very fortunate that he had his mother and father were great influences for him. But once I saw it, it didn't surprise me.
Dad was a cop, right?
Yeah, Dad was a cop in Chicago, one of the roughest sections of Chicago. So you know, and his dad, one of the most powerful things his dad said to Doc, because I asked him one time, you know, what's the one thing your dad said to you that you can use with anybody in this world? A player, a coach, a leader, a manager of a department in a company. And he said, that's easy. And I said, well, what was it? And he said, he who angers you owns you. So Doc wasn't really letting his anger out as much of his emotion and his heart, saying, trying to, you know, the tears to me signified, people, this is real, right? Yeah. Wake up and understand that things have been going on. You know, hey, Doc could be walking in any city in the NBA, probably. And maybe it's cold and we're in one of the northern cities and the snow is really belting down, but he just went out to get a Starbucks coffee, right? So he's walking back to the hotel and he's got his hoodie on, you know, and he's told me many times. And when the green light says walk, you can walk, or excuse me, it says walk now. He walks across and he hears the doors locking, click, 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 click. Now, you know what would happen if Doc took that hood off? Those doors would open so quick. Hey, Doc, what's going on, man?
Right.
Right. But he has to live that too every day. His house was burned down in San Antonio, Texas. When he was there, he was a player and then he did some radio, TV for them. There was a racially charged, two people came in and burned the house down. Wow. They never even found out who did it, but they knew because of what was left, there was some, it was racially charged. Wow. Right. So it didn't surprise me as much as when people told me. I was like, oh, I got to see this.
How did you? Yeah, sorry. How did you like how Adam Silver and LeBron and everybody in the bubble handled, you know, the racial reckoning and the Black Lives Matter movement, and the WNBA also, for that matter?
Yeah. I think you know, they did everything they could. I think. You could say, well, they could have done one more thing, but they did a lot. And if they had done too much, they probably would have caught some people lashing back out at them. You know, there was a balance there to play the games, but also educate and get people to start understanding. You know, shortly after the George Floyd killing took place, I got some calls from some companies, and they knew that I spoke on leadership, and they just wanted me to come on a virtual meeting to talk about leading in crisis, right? So one of the things that popped up to me as I started to really just sit with myself and my thoughts was the following, and it's actually on my desk right now, so let me grab it here. I wrote a couple of things. Number one, to change someone's behavior, you have to change the way they think. No one's behavior changes unless their thinking changes. So having that as the foundational piece, there are 3 sentences I will throw at you that all connect to what I just said. Number one is understanding starts with a respectful and genuine attempt to learn. Learning is best accomplished through listening. Listening occurs when you let the other person speak, inform, and educate. So my first thought, and I've kind of been this way, and my wife, Wendy, even kind of got a group together in our neighborhood because our neighborhood is pretty much an all-white neighborhood, right? There's a few African-American families in here, but she tried to get some of to start with some of her white friends. And they just started to talk about this because that's the start, right? And then she started to do reading and listening to some podcasts and trying to get a greater understanding so she could be able to share that with others. So, but it just made me think that the core of everything, when you are not being the one offended, you should be the listener. Like many people probably never knew that even with a Doc Rivers, oh, well, a door lock never clicked. Yeah, it does. It still does today. Right. So, you know, and then after that, you know, what are the actions? What are the actions you can do? and I came up with 6 that I talk about quite often. First one is listening, but listen to understand, not to respond. Too many people listen to respond right away. In these conversations, it's not a competition, right? You're not trying to win the conversation. You're trying to learn from the conversation. Number 2 is asking. But before you ask about, what's it like for you, Doc Rivers, to grow up, be a little bit deeper than that, right? Anyone on the street can say, well, what happened to you? Go deeper. Doc, what did you feel? Like, how does that make you feel? What do you think about the person saying it? How do you move on from that? Deeper questions. Because here's what's happening well, maybe it's changing a tad, but in the early part of this process, I think a lot of leaders were exposed. They thought they were a great leader. Well, great leaders have relationships with those they lead. And if your relationships are strong enough, you can have deep conversations with those people. That's where they found out, wow, I don't even know what to say. If you don't know what to say, you probably don't have a relationship with that person yet. I could probably ask Doc anything about this Black Lives Matter movement, situation, challenge that we're in, because our relationship is deep, right? So I don't have, I have to put thought and be respectful about how I ask my questions, but there's not one question I would be afraid to ask him.
Right? Go ahead, John.
Coach, between George Floyd and the COVID that we're all in, doing the way we're doing this interview, via Zoom, how has your training changed? Where you can't be in the room, where you're a coach, you see body language is important. And 2, the messaging and making sure it's getting through. How have you had to change your style or anything that you've been doing? And will those changes carry forward when we're eventually out of COVID?
I don't think I've changed as much as I've just gotten comfortable with doing virtuals, and I tell most groups before I start now, I can't see you. So every now and then, to make me feel good, just say, wow, I never knew that. Just do that. It won't bother me one bit. Okay.
I didn't know. I have to say, I didn't know about Doc Rivers' house burning down. John probably did, but I'd never heard that before.
I did not know.
Yes.
That.
Amazing.
Yes,
very sad. Wow.
And like when I'm talking live and I see people on their phones, I just tell them ahead of time, make it look like you're actually taking notes on my talk, right. Not texting somebody like, this guy is boring, right?
That's right.
So for me, I just try and connect. I still try and make people maybe smile a little bit, laugh a little bit. If I raise my voice, I'll still raise my voice, in a virtual. So what has changed a little bit is I sit down now when I do my virtuals. Some articles will tell you should still stand up. Well, I feel uncomfortable standing up talking to a computer. Like I feel like
that's so weird.
Yeah, that's how I do it. You try and still you make your PowerPoints, even though mine are still very similar. Try and make them more impactful, maybe. Mm-hmm. So, but I think here's the deal. If your message was good to begin with, the only thing that has changed is the medium, right? How we send that message. So still deliver that message you would have delivered, but still try and come over with some, like I have a lot of people telling me, gosh, your enthusiasm came through the screen. I don't know how I do that, but I'm glad they're saying that.
You're muted, John.
That could be a good thing.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely with John.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about when Doc took over for the Clippers, obviously he's taken over a Sixers team that's won a lot, but are not known as winners, if you will. Assuming there are no trades made between now and the beginning of the season, he's basically got a very similar roster. They got Seth Curry, which was, I think, a great move. It fills in that JJ Redick role that they missed out on last year. What do you think he will bring, and how will that team look different, do you think? Whether they win a championship or not is obvious, things can come up, injuries, but just, early in the season to the later in the season, how do you think that team will be different?
Well, I think he'll get them to believe. He's very good at that. And whereas everyone is coming up with the reasons why either Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid should be traded, he's coming up with the reasons why they should be playing together. I think you'll see subtle differences in how they play. There may be more pick and rolls with those two involved, as an example. Okay. They did a great job of getting shooting around those two.
Yep.
I think you'll see Joel still being allowed to shoot some trail threes, but not having that be his number one priority each game. Doc has a unique ability to get guys to believe. Now, it doesn't work all the time, because what you find out about leadership is not perfect. Coaching is not perfect. Basketball is not perfect. So what you have to do is deal with the imperfections. And sometimes you can get it done, and sometimes you can't. I'm sure he took some lessons off of the Clippers experience. We've communicated a number of times since he took the 76ers job. I won't get into what those conversations were, but that he's an example of a good leader and a learner. He's self-reflected quite a bit, because what you can do when failure presents itself is you can play the victim. And if you play the victim, it always happens to me, and this sort of thing. If people don't buy that, then they go to step 2 that all victims go to. They go into the blame game. They've got to tell you that other people made this happen, not me. And I played bad because of someone else. Right? And if the victim game don't work and the blame game don't work, then they go to lying. Right? And then if that doesn't work, they go to recruiting, trying to get other teammates to join them and say, hey, let's go against coach. Right? And then if that doesn't work, they quit. Right? So, I think you'll see an enthused Doc Rivers. I think you'll see an enthused, but again, it gets back to that word of sustainability. The two hardest things that a coach has to do each and every year is to continue to get all 13, well, this year they're allowing 15, all 15 players engaged throughout the entire year, even when they're not playing the number of minutes they want to play. And the second thing is, once you've been categorized as a winner, right, or someone who wins, how do you sustain that? And Doc would be considered successful, right? So how can he start and then sustain the effort he needs and the belief he needs from this new team?
It's interesting. You talked about specific players. Before I transitioned to Kobe and Steve Nash, I've heard JJ Redick talk about, and John mentioned him, talk about reinventing himself and work ethic. But he's talked about that Clippers team, one of those Clippers teams where there was Matt Barnes and Chris Paul, Steven Jackson, Blake. That team was loaded, and how he's just bummed that team didn't take it all the way. And is there anything you can just say in reflection as to, because it's so temperamental in terms of all the things that have to go right to bring a championship to the city. Is there anything that you learned from that team that was so loaded and had so many great parts to it that just couldn't get over the hump? You are listening to the Sports Deli, and the final segment will be upcoming. And the Sports Deli, again, is sponsored by SportRx, the leader in sports prescription eyewear. You can find them online at sportrx.com or call them at 888-831-5817 and let them know the Sports Deli sent you for your special discount. And now back to Kevin Eastman's final segment in the Sports Deli as he answers us about that Clippers team that couldn't quite get over the hump to win a championship, and more about Kobe Bryant and Steve Nash in the Sports Deli.
Well, I think that what I remember JJ saying that was so impactful was there was no joy, right? There was no joy in the season. And you have to have a little bit of that. It has to kind of be fun, what you're going through. It's hard, but it's fun hard, or hard fun, whatever you want to call it, right? So I think what you have when the best are coupled with the best and are competing against the best, you have to get your agendas right. And the agenda has to be a team agenda all year long, every game long. And every team, even the teams that win championships, sometimes they'll have players go from team agenda to personal agenda, maybe for a quarter, maybe for a game, maybe for 2 games or a week, or right before the All-Star game where guys really want to make the All-Star team, all of a sudden they want to score a lot, right? As you study and observe the week to 10 days before the All-Star game, you can see guys who are trying to get that last spot, right? Because then it becomes a personal agenda. So the key becomes getting that balance. And we could never seem to get that balance with the team. And, you know, sometimes, like Doc says, the longer you are together, the more you start to see the warts, not the things you loved. Like when you first get together, like Joel and Ben and with Doc, oh man, I love how we're doing it this year. You know, this is great how we're doing it this year. And then you get into year 2, 3, God, I can't believe we're doing this. Or you start to see warts. So part of it was with those 3 being together. Part of it is they weren't ready to accept each other's messages all the time. And they even talk about it now. I think JJ said on one of his podcasts, I can't remember who it was. Oh, he was interviewing Jimmy Butler. And at one point, JJ said, you know, the guys on the Clippers now, we talk about it some. We wish we had been a little more mature back then, right. Where we could take each other's messaging and use it in a productive way, not all of a sudden, screw you.
Now you talk about mature, and I'm going to throw this in real quick, John, that you can jump in. You know, Kobe, obviously, you know, the loss of him was great, you know, and far-reaching on so many levels in the women's game, and you know, for his girls and his family. And you worked with him. Talk about his level of commitment to mastering things and just who he was, and give people some insight into Kobe Bryant a little bit.
Yeah, well, first off, everyone can kind of learn what he did by doing this article thing, right? Reading articles. I have one drawer that is filled with Kobe stuff, because eventually I'm going to prepare a talk on things I learned from him and Kevin Garnett, right? Two of the wackos in their own way, but you can learn a lot from both of them. Now, obviously, I wasn't on the floor and coaching Kobe because I was never on a team with him, but we did things with Nike. So I had a chance to kind of pepper him with questions and also just watch, right, and observe. So for him, you know, it was this, everyone thinks the Mamba mentality is this unbelievably intricate personal philosophy he had. And if you study YouTubes on him when he's talking or being interviewed, he says the Mamba mentality basically is, I want to be a little bit better today. But there is an inherent tremendous drive that goes with the everyday part. Because to the average person and the average player, hard work has an expiration date, and you can pick and choose when you want to do it. You know, in Kobe's mind and Kevin Garnett's mind, hard work has no expiration date. Now, milk in their homes, that has expiration date, right? Meat has an expiration date. Hard work, that doesn't have an expiration date. It's each and every day. And what you find out with the guys like Kobe and Kevin, the separating word is every. It is. It's every. It's not occasional. It's every. It's every day, every repetition, every drill, right?
Everything.
Every game, every practice, everything, every teammate, every coach. You know, and then the other thing that both of them were keen on is they were in the learn it all category. You know, one of the stories goes with Kobe that Phil Jackson told him, you know, you're at an elite level right now, but there's still more there. You got to start finding out what people in other crafts and industries do. So Kobe started cold calling one of the first ones way back in the day was he called Michael Jackson, the singer, right?
Wow.
And he asked him, how do you do what you do? Right? There's a video out on Michael Jackson putting together his the show didn't go on, right? Because he died before then. But the detail of how he pointed his toe when he wanted his dancers were off about an inch and a half. You know, the detail of the best. But Kobe wanted to learn that. He called up Ariana Huffington, just blind, you know, because she's so successful in what she does. What do you do? How do you get there? Like, what's your daily routine? So two things that separate Kobe from everybody. And I think he would even say this. Number one is 4 a.m. That's when he started his first of 3 workouts in the off season.
Right.
Because in order to sustain it, he had to separate himself from others. So that one usually gave him 1 workout per day over 90 days of the off season. So he's up 90-0 right now. The average player works out once a day. So now he's up 180-0 on workout days, right? So he said, it just makes sense that over 17 years, I'm going to be better, right? It just adds up. And then the other word he would probably use is one that I learned from him when we were in Las Vegas doing an event together for Nike. And it was the word until. And I don't have time to get into the whole story, but basically the lesson is this. You work until you master something. You don't work until practice is over. You don't work until it's time to go to the party. You don't work until it's time to go to dinner. You work until you can master it to the best of your ability that day. So that's what I think of when I think of Kobe.
Amazing.
Coach, you were Division I basketball coach and obviously at the highest levels in the NBA as an assistant. And you brought up Kevin Garnett and Kobe Bryant. One of the things they have in common is they didn't go to college. You know, they came right from high school and the rules have changed since. What's your take on looking at it both ways? Are we wasting time with a one and done on both levels? Are we better off just getting the high level guys that can come from high school, go right to the NBA? Or is there a benefit to the players for them to spend 1 year in school and how, but also on a side note, it complicates the recruiting at the Division I level, knowing you're only going to have a guy for a year.
Yeah, well, first off, when I speak to college teams, one of the things I talk about, I know everyone in this room wants to be a one and done. There's 2 one and dones. They don't know it. Right? There's those people, those players, and I'm not going to get into, the kid Bennett, right, who was drafted number 1 a year ago. He was one and done. He was in the league 1 year and done.
Right.
Right? So then there's the one and done that they all dream of, but they got to be ready for that other one could happen. Like your career could be done. Sure. If you come out after 1, right? So I just want those players to understand who are the ones who get there? It's the 1%ers usually, right? The ones who can actually make that. And so much of it is you either luck out and get into the right organization that will not hold your hand, but will guide you when you get off the path, right? And the second thing you look for on guys that can kind of make it is their mental makeup. Not so much their game and not even their body physically, because that's all going to change. We're even seeing it change now in Andrew Wiggins. You know, he's come back more buffed and fit and stronger just in this last year, right? So can the guy handle it mentally, which is the everyday grind of it? So, I think if the opportunity presents itself, then those guys should be able to go right into the league. Now, if that happens back again, maybe the NBA will even be more demanding on the programs that they have to have for these young people, because the mental part that can take the grind on the court, practice every day and the extra workouts, that's one thing. But the maturity to say no once you leave the practice facility, that's the other thing. And maybe a high school kid doesn't have that. I've often thought that if you're good enough, I often thought the best thing is the following. You have to go to at least 1 year of college. And if you are deemed one of those elite 15 guys, maybe there is a major for 1 year where you learn about how to balance a checkbook, how to speak in front of people, how to talk to people that are older than you and maybe grew up different than you did. All the things you'll need to do. How do you say no? right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you discipline yourself? What's not just your time management, but your priority management each day? Because what you find about the best players is they keep the main thing the main thing. Even
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jordan, when he was shooting all these commercials, everyone might say, well, gosh, he's not working out. Well, part of his contract read that he had to have a half court. So if the people filming the commercial didn't have a half court ready for him to shoot, he ain't doing the commercial.
Wow.
He kept the main thing the main thing. Kobe kept the main thing the main thing. Why do you say that, Kevin? Because 4 a.m., the first thing he did every day was worked on his craft. And then he got home by like 7 o'clock, and his kids were waking up and he could eat breakfast with them. He could drive his children to school.
Mm-hmm.
But he kept the main thing the main thing, right? And you could argue he kept the two main things, his craft and his family.
Amazing.
And he covered them both. So that's a long answer to a short question.
Okay.
Great answer.
And Coach, talk about your new book and some takeaways. What's one big takeaway from your new book that you have out?
Well, if you are having trouble sleeping, it'll definitely put you to sleep. That's number one.
I don't think so, Coach.
It is a cheaper version of Ambien. So, but in all seriousness, I've always had this curiosity about why did some people get to a level they got to and others did not, when they maybe grew up the same, or maybe one of them grew up even less than, right? Maybe the offerings you had available to you were all the same, or to some it was less than. So how did they get there? And the question that kept coming up in my head is, why are the best, right? And there's two bests in this world. And I talk about this in the book, because everybody thinks that I'm talking about you have to be the best at what you do. No, a lot of people can't handle that, and that's okay. It's a daunting task for many people. Like if you tell them you have to be the best salesman in the world, they may clam up, and you may not get what you could out of them, and what you could get out of them is pretty good. So the other best is not just the best, but my best. And what I found out was, in all of my years of reading, you talk about Kobe saying, I'm 90 hours up, now I'm 180 hours up. Every 2 hours I read that other people don't, I'm getting 2 hour advantage on them. So as I started to think about why the best are the best, I said to myself one day, there are common words that when these people are interviewed, they all say them. I started out with, I think, 92. And I whittled it down, because you can't do a book with 92 chapters. Like, I'm not reading that.
It would be Obama's new book.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And I'm going to have someone read that to me. So, but for me, I wanted to make it where it was readable, but more importantly, where it was understandable and actionable. So there are 25 words that the best of the best, not just have in their vocabulary, but they live by them. And, when I was going through it and the editor said, well, you have to rank them, I said, I can't do that. And he said, why? They're your words. I said, well, first of all, they're not my words. They're the words of successful people. And number two, on any given day, one word is the most important word there is that day. Like preparation could be the most important word of the 25 that day, because you're about to go into a sales pitch or a sales meeting, or you're trying to put an idea in front of the board, the corporate board, right? Or the leadership team. You better hope you have prepared. So the book goes through those 25 words. It gives a story and an example of each word, so that people can understand that real people actually do utilize this word. But here's the difference. As I go through these words, whether it be truth, preparation, intentional, standards, people say, well, I've heard them all the time. I even use them. Here's the difference. Some people have these words in their vocabulary. The people who have become their best or the best, they live these words every day. Big difference. Big difference between using them when you say sentences and living them each and every day.
You hear that, John?
Yep.
You got to live them every day, John.
All right, that was a pinpointed hit.
Well, John's a senior administrator at a college in upstate New York, so it was a little jab. John's you don't get to where he is if you don't have a lot of those characteristics, for sure.
Hey, one of the, and I'm not saying this to do it even at your school or anywhere else, but one of my favorite audiences to speak to, I just fell into it, I don't know, it just happened. Somebody found out about it and then they asked me to do it. Is each and every year schools, especially at the high school level, they have that that two or 3 days they come in, the teachers do beforehand. So you may have 500 teachers in the audience and administrators, and just talking to them and just the energy that they have and the enthusiasm they have for their craft. You know, someone has to come up with a talk now of how do you do it in this environment. I don't know how the teachers are doing what they're doing. You know, they're in that group. Obviously, the nurses and doctors are number one, but teachers are also, educators are also in that group.
The hardest thing, Rob, I'm talking to teachers, the hardest thing is the going back and forth. They can't get, you know, you're a coach, you know, routine. You know, so for 3 weeks, they say they're going to start in class. Then the school system pivots in one day. They have to go back to home teaching. Then 2 weeks later, they're bringing the kids back. And now it's a mixture. You know, maybe they're in, you know, before the outbreak we've seen now, there are school districts where they're there 3 days a week, off 2 days a week. And now the New York City, the younger ones are going in and the older ones are staying home. So if you have a brother and sister, I mean, there's no rhythm to any of this. If you talk to the parents, you talk to the teachers, you talk to the students, you know, one of the big things nationally is students of color in first gen, most are behind nationally in applying to colleges because they're not getting the advising that they're used to. There's a rhythm to that. There's this time of the year I go to see Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, then the college rep visits. And, you know, plus the other thing is you talk about, you know, the insecurities that some of these kids have, you know, with the cameras being on, they may not want to show their home. And they may not know how to do the, you know, the backdrop I've got here saying Richmond Spiders and all. And they go cameras off. And then that leads to lack of paying attention. It's a downward spiral. So it's you know, we're going to be feeling this for decades.
Gosh.
Well, Kevin, we have a very famous segment of the podcast, and I know we could bring you back and talk about so many things. I want to ask you real quickly if you could answer before the this or that, because I have two people that I wanted to ask you about. One, Steve Nash, and you know you've worked with him, and how do you feel like he's going to be as a head coach? And Blake Griffin, really from the standpoint of when he came into the league, you know, he was a dunker, he was a forward, and how he's evolved into a point guard, a three-point shooter, a good free throw shooter. And obviously I'm a Piston fan, so, you know, I've been following the Pistons for years, but, you know, I'm an NBA fan. You know, LeBron has defied father time, but someone like Blake, even though he's been injury prone, I mean, I've just been amazed at how he's evolved, and what hand did you have in that? Because he's in a remarkable, you know, turnaround for his, you know, career.
Yeah. So with Blake, obviously you're there every day, but there was a gentleman by the name of Bob Tate, and this was Blake's first foray into taking a skill that wasn't very good and just working at it each and every day, and it becoming better and better and better and better. And that was his shooting. And the observation I had of Blake was his ability to come into the gym each and every day, every single day, and just work on the form of his shot. You know, his shooting coach at the time, it was, like I said, Bob Tate. And Bob would always say to Blake, you make this shot on this repetition based on if your form is perfect. And he said, the shooting coach said, I'm not going to even watch the ball and whether the ball goes in or not. I am just going to watch your form. And I'll say good, or I'll say no, right? So he was getting repetitions on perfect form. And that is so boring, so basic. Junior high kids do that. You know, getting back to Kobe, the story goes when we were doing a camp with Nike, one of the coaches wanted to go over and visit and watch one of his workouts at 4 a.m. So, of course, the coach got up at 3:30, got there about 10 minutes to 4. The lights were on in the gym, and he thought, oh, wow, the janitor turned the lights on. Then as he gets closer to the door, he hears a ball bouncing, and he said, maybe Kobe's putting his sneakers on, and the coach or the rebounder is going to just shoot some shots himself. He gets in there, and Kobe's lathered up. Lathered up. So then he goes and he watches the workout, and Kobe's working on little footwork things, very basic that you would try and you do in a junior high camp. He was doing this for like 45 minutes. So the coach really wanted to ask him when the workout was done, why, I thought I expected all these intricate drills. So he hit him later on in the day, and he said, Kobe, let me just ask you one thing. You're the best player in the world. Why are you working on such simple drills? And he said, that's why I'm the best player in the world. You see, Blake had that mentality, right? He would work on that simple thing every day. And then it went into ball handling because he always had the feel of being able, he was a very good passer before we got him, really, before we got there, for sure. So he could see the floor. He could see things a little bit ahead of maybe the defense. So that was innate. We don't know where he got that, probably on the playgrounds at home, right? Which is why we don't see that as much anymore. Kids aren't playing 3-on-3, right, in the backyard. That's where you really get a feel of things because the floor is a little more open, right? So so that would be what I would say about Blake. And then with Steve, probably the thing that always stays in my mind was when we were doing an event for Nike, and he was there, and I wanted him to talk about how did he get to the point where he could shoot off of his right leg, his left leg, shoot with his left hand, his right hand, shoot on balance, off balance. And he said to the guys, because it was 12 of the best point guards in the country, high school players, and then also I want to say 12 or 15 of the best point guards in college basketball. So we might have had, probably some didn't come. So maybe we had 30 of the top 35 point guards in the country. We're there learning from Steve and all the coaches. And he said, guys, when I get in that lane, you got to understand there's 7 feet of body and then an additional 7 feet of arms. So I'm in there with 14 feet of flesh. And he said, a good point guard finds solutions. You have solutions. Left foot, right foot, off balance, extended arm layup, normal layup, right? Left hand, right hand. You have to develop them. So we ended up actually taking that concept and putting it into our drill work with like Rondo. Rondo has a variety of layups now.
Oh my God.
And so much of it was what we just called the Nastro. I'd just pop him the ball and he'd have to shoot it off his left foot, falling backwards, that sort of thing. So that was number one. How will he do? I think here's what I think happens here's what I think the best leaders do. First off, they understand that they don't know everything and they're not an expert on everything. They have pretty good basic knowledge of the industry or craft. Steve has that for sure, right? And then they hire their gaps. Where are their gaps? Maybe Steve's is drawing up plays in a timeout, but he's got incredible strengths in what may be more important in professional sports. Your ability to engage, motivate, inspire players and get them to stay together as a team and have a team agenda versus a personal agenda through the duration of it now a 72-game schedule plus playoffs. Right. The year we won it with Boston in 2008, we played 111 games that year and we were together 287 days. Right. So how can you keep that going? And what you'll find in pro sports is maybe the most important thing you do is how you build relationships. Right. How do you build relationships? Because it doesn't matter if you have great talent, if the great talent is not going to do what you think they need to do in order to win for this team to win, it's not going to work. And how do you get that? The stronger the relationships, the greater demands you can put on someone.
That's awesome.
And I think we all live that. I mean, we're not going to take something from somebody we hate, who we don't think is competent and who's not putting in the work. Why would we do that?
Right.
Now, someone who's put in the work because we could see him working every day, someone who knows his craft, which Steve does, right? And someone who's in it for us, not for themselves, they can maybe F-bomb me every now and then, and I'm good with that. Every word that comes out of Pop's mouth, you don't say in church. Right? And those guys love him.
Yep. Yeah.
He puts them and their futures ahead of him and his short-term gains.
One of the greats. Funny you mention him. We have Lindsey Gottlieb coming on Tuesday. And we'll talk about that coaching tree from the University of San Diego, which is insane. Okay, let's get to the this or that segment, John's favorite part of the podcast. So these are rapid fire, Coach. Okay, so you gotta get through them quickly here. All right, Rajon Rondo as a world champion, as a Celtic or a Laker?
Celtic.
Interesting. Garnett or Anthony Davis?
Garnett.
Larry or Magic? Wow.
They are so good at what they do. I'm staying. You know how you go in and you vote all Democrat, all Republican.
Yeah. Straight line vote, Coach.
I ain't saying this. I ain't saying that. I ain't saying pink. What I'm going to say is green.
Okay.
But Larry did have one of the first step backs that nobody ever talks about. Everybody talks about Harden, but Larry's step back was amazing. When you were a player, were you a trash talker or a silent assassin?
Great player. Next. No.
Okay.
I was probably, what were the two?
Trash talker or silent assassin?
Oh, silent assassin.
Of course, yeah. Listen, a great listener. All right, best motivational speaker, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tony Robbins?
Well, I'm going to say Tony Robbins. Now, you know, you can debate his style, but the content, boom.
Spot on. Okay, so Tony Robbins or Eric Thomas?
Eric Thomas is good.
He is good.
Well, since Tony won the other category, I'm going to go Eric Thomas.
Okay, Eric Thomas or
a politician.
You could. Eric Thomas or Kevin Eastman?
Oh, Eric Thomas.
Oh, wow.
Because I've heard me speak. I'm with me every day.
That's right. All right, Woolworths or Kresge's department store?
Well, because we had a Woolworths in Haddonfield, New Jersey when I grew up. We also called it the Five and Dime store.
That's right.
Yep. So I'm going Woolworths.
That's right. Now we call it the Dollar Tree or whatever we call it.
I'm getting my good and plenties.
That's right. That's right. Jeff Van Gundy or Bill Walton as an announcer?
Jeff Van Gundy.
Wow. We have Bill coming on one of these days, so that'll be interesting. All right. What was tougher for you to handle, Martin Luther King's death or JFK's?
Gosh. At first, I was going to say JFK because I remember where I was then, and my parents spoke about him a lot. Yet I read more about the Malcolm X's and the Martin Luther Kings.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll say it's a tie. Waffles, pancakes, or French toast?
Pancakes.
What's your second choice?
I didn't have a chance to prepare for this.
Coach just articulated, you couldn't hear because of some technical difficulties, but Coach Eastman just shared with us that he said he prepared for the podcast about 12 days ago, but he didn't prepare for the this or that rapid fire. And I said, well, that's why we call it rapid fire. So anyways, all right, back to John clarifying a little bit about the Waffle House situation. If you had to choose second place for waffles, pancakes, or French toast, what's next?
French toast.
Go ahead. Oh, wow.
That's
John,
okay. We'll just move on, Coach.
We'll move on today. Okay. John has the story about Waffle House that we're always...
It's okay.
Yeah, but the waffles, you don't get the whole piece because they got those little dents in them.
But that lets the butter sit in them, Coach. That lets the butter sit in, and then everything gets in. It makes it a value meal. It makes it adds to it more. Because when you do it on French toast, on the French toast, the butter can slide off much more.
Well, you can probably tell I'm so bland. I have no butter on any of the three.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's so.
All right. Let's see. Now this is a palindrome. You know what a palindrome is? I'm sure you do. Same forwards and backwards. Okay, so your favorite palindrome, race car or radar?
Radar, because I like to know where I'm going.
Oh, there you go. Kayak or my gym?
My gym.
Of course. Okay, prefer walking, yoga, jogging, or lifting weights?
It's not what I prefer. It's what I can only do now, walking.
Restaurants in Haddonfield, New Jersey, Boston, Massachusetts, or Los Angeles, California?
North end of Boston.
Nice. Have you been? Obviously you have, but Fenway Park. What are your feelings about Fenway? I've been there. I love it.
We lost a softball game to the players in Fenway Park.
Wow. Oh my God.
See, those are some of the things Doc would do. We had
cool.
softball games, players, staff, and we did it in Fenway.
Wow.
And you can see how bad of basketball players are. They can't hit a slow motion big ball, yet when they're in the stands watching Big Papi play, they think, oh man, I can hit that thing. Paul, you can't even see that thing, let alone hit it.
That's right. That's classic. Streetcar Named Desire, Miracle on 34th Street, Gone with the Wind, or Casablanca?
Miracle on 34th Street.
Miracle on 34th Street, or Citizen Kane, or The Godfather?
I only saw Miracle.
All right. Did you see Hoosiers?
I'll take Hoosiers.
Okay, there we go. There's the winner.
Was Hoosiers in there?
Hoosiers.
No, we just put it in.
Yeah, right.
There'll be some.
No, Hoosiers was going to be against the winner of the first ones.
See, I'm listening to respond, not to understand.
There you go. Exactly. Belichick or Lombardi?
Belichick, because we were there.
Yeah. Gino Auriemma or Pat Summitt?
Oh man, that's a tough. I'd probably say Pat Summitt, because I think she started it.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. Popovich or the Zen Master? Wow.
Well, I'm going to go Phil Jackson, number of rings.
Okay. Coach K, Dean Smith, or John Wooden?
Well, because I like them all so much, I'm going to go with the guy who started it, John Wooden.
Were you going to say something about Pop or Phil Jackson?
Well, the Phil and the Pop, Phil has let us in by writing some books. Pop hadn't done that yet, so I'm giving Phil the.
Good point.
All right, this is the last question. Very important. Now, if say you're an NBA head coach one day and you have a position open as a special assistant to the head coach, do you hire John or me?
Well, I would think of it this way. John seems to be that guy in the background who is a deep thinker. You seem to be able to be a doer, speak right now, speak the truth to guys. So what I'm going to do is split the salary. And then if neither of you accept that, I'm going to hire a good coach.
Hey, there you go. Exactly.
That's right.
That's the awesome. Best answer. 3 is the best answer.
All right. Well, the floor is yours, Coach. Is there anything else that you want to share with everyone? It's been an amazing time sharing space with you, and we're really honored that you came and did this for us.
Oh, no, gosh, the pleasure's mine. I think I will remind people of Doc's dad's quote, he who angers you owns you. And then the other thing I would throw at people is the following, especially young people trying to move up in this profession or in this world, whatever profession they're in. Seek wisdom from those who came before you. Because that wisdom, if you really put thought to it, can set a direction for you and maybe give you some of the steps on how to get there. And you might even be able to get there faster and better than the mentor who gave you that information.
And it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah, well said.
Where can they find your book?
Well, on our website, kevineastman.net. And on there will be everything that you talked about, the challenge series, the books, blogs, newsletters, those types of things, books I've been reading.
Awesome.
So they can go there. And then the Twitter is simply kind of some of these things we've talked about today. It's more about my Twitter is not, where I went to the bathroom and how well it went, as much as it is leadership, teamwork, culture, success, next step areas of your life that you can improve. It's kind of bullets and quick hits on that.
What's been the success to your marriage?
That we have been married 35 years now, 36. Wendy's not here, so I don't have the exact number. I always think 1986, so whatever that is from 2000, that 35?
championship season of the Celtics. Yeah.
Yeah, we were only in the same house 18 of those years. So yeah, because I mean when I was in Boston, well, it was more than that, but and I think that I think that my big mistake with all of that is, especially if you're a college coach, you know, wives have such a good feel. Women just have a good feel of people, much more so than I think many of the coaches, say in college basketball and football today. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Coach K has done it with his wife, Mickey. She's very involved in the program, but not to the point where the players dislike it or people around the building dislike it. So I would have gotten Wendy more involved because she's, as I've learned over the years, she really reads situations much better than I do.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, your time's really, really valuable, and we appreciate you spending time with us. And anything we can do for you, please don't hesitate to ask. And stay safe and enjoy the NBA season. And you know, best of luck with your book and everything that you're doing, Coach.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. See you.
All right. Take care, Coach. Thanks. We want to thank Kevin Eastman again for coming into the Sports Deli today and getting some of that karma from us. And for Dr. J and Coach K, I am Hootie Hoot. If you want to find out more information about Coach Eastman's book, Why the Best Are the Best, you can go to his website at kevineastman.net. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin Eastman and on Instagram at Kevin Eastman Speaking. We were so honored to have him here with us today. And until next time, remember, you can always send us an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at Mike Hootner and on Twitter at Michael Hootner. Again, condolences to Ernie Robinson's family. And Ernie, we love you. You're an amazing person, and it was an honor to know you. Rest in peace, my brother. Peace.